Hi, I'm Jennifer Tomlinson, Global Channel Marketing Lead at Microsoft. Welcome to the Partner Marketing Pros podcast, where we have candid conversations with Microsoft partners all over the world who have achieved strong customer acquisition and retention from their excellence in marketing. In this podcast series, our partners are going to share marketing experiences, secrets, and best practices, as well as practical advice and resources that can help you improve your marketing results and drive growth. This episode will be delivered in two parts. In part one, we will discuss how to organize marketing teams for success in terms of structure, resourcing, and technology. And in part two, we'll focus on marketing budgets and investments. Today, we will speak to Gerry Murray, Research Director at IDC, about marketing team organization, structure, and resourcing. Gerry Murray is a Research Director with IDC's Marketing and Sales Technology Research Service. IDC has worked closely with Microsoft for many years, and in particular on the partner marketing business with our team. So welcome, Gerry.
Gerry, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I understand for the last 20 years, you've provided best practice guidance to a number of really senior marketing executives at many of the top high-tech companies. We're really looking forward to hearing your insights and experience with a lot of marketers and how they structure their organizations and some of the trends that you see happening.
Yeah, thanks, Sharka. It's a pleasure to be here. Just there's obviously so much going on in marketing these days, organizationally, technologically, and just a lot of great transformations happening between brands and buyers all over the map. So lots of opportunities for innovation, but also a little bit of confusion. So hopefully we can clear a little bit of that up as we go through today's discussion.
Fantastic. So I think really this conversation will focus heavily on marketing operationally and structure and, how we can organize our departments and our teams and where to put our investments and energy. So why don't we start by talking about structure specifically in tech companies and what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, it's a question that comes up all the time. And as you can imagine, in our enterprise practices at IDC, it's extremely complicated. And in fact, companies are going in opposite directions all the time on any given topic. So it's very, there's not a lot of consistency and people are experimenting in all directions simultaneously. But I think for Microsoft partners, who many of whom are, small and medium-sized businesses, it doesn't have to be distractingly complicated, right? Mm-hmm. With today's modern marketing technology, the platforms are so able to scale the ability of marketers to reach their audiences that with a pretty basic infrastructure, some good data, maybe a few outside services from a marketing consultants or a firm here and there, a small marketing team today can do an enormous amount of marketing and reach very large audiences and really drive revenue. For companies that are focused on a particular vertical market or solution proposition, it's pretty simple. And it can get more complicated as they add more products and they have maybe different kinds of businesses. Like I'm selling to accountants on one side of my business, I'm selling to dentist offices or insurance companies on the other side of my business. Then it gets more complicated. But I think the whole organizational question starts at the top, right? And in many cases, or I think actually probably more illuminating to talk about the fact that, it's very rare for a marketer to go out and start a Microsoft solution partner or any sort of technology business, right? It's usually some sort of tech person or salesperson type, persona that is a founder, CEO, president type person. And, they have a great deal of expertise and passion for the business, but very rarely are they, marketing experts, right? Mm-hmm. And so, they need to really, they need some help. They may have a lot of passion, a lot of expertise, but they may not be great at, putting all that down on different media formats. And, they need to recognize that and, bring in expertise either internally or outside to help them, amplify their message and get their names and their brands out there in the market.
Yeah, and I'm super curious because I've seen in the field working with partners that some of them, will go and hire a friend of a friend or a family member or someone, and they sort of pick someone they think can help with the marketing. But you would never do that with engineering or with, product management and things like that. Is that something you're seeing where it's not taken as seriously and there isn't a big investment and marketing is a little bit undervalued in some of these organizations?
Yeah, I think it's a question that, it's taken seriously. I think people understand that's critical, and there's, a lot of awareness. I mean, we all use social media, and we're all very internet savvy these days. And so there's, a very obvious recognition that the business has to be present in a lot of different places in the digital marketplace. But the problem is the investment side, right? So everybody wants to do it on the cheap. And the fact is, that can, it's certainly a good idea to crawl before you walk and run. There's no question about that, especially if you're really just getting started. But at the same time, you do have to start to understand that, the earlier you bring in, true expertise and can delegate, to someone who can run a full-blown marketing campaign as opposed to just, doing random acts of marketing all over the place, that will, really drive the long-term success of the business.
Yeah, and I'm curious too to hear your thoughts and feedback on, in terms of structure. One of the things I've often said is, if you have marketing reporting through to sales, like a VP of sales first, and and marketing, you won't get the same long-term strategic view of branding and investment of product strategy and sort of market-driven. And you'll very much see a marketing department that becomes more implementational and more short-term focused around, getting leads and filling the pipeline. So any thoughts in terms of structure about, should marketing be a separate department? How do you feel about a VP and marketing, as opposed to, being its own department or structure?
Well, I think there's two basic revenue models that Microsoft partners operate. One is we have a lot of existing clients, and we get maybe most or all of our revenue from our existing current client base, and we're not that interested in bringing on hundreds or dozens of more clients. And then there's the other side of the fence where the revenue is really dependent on bringing in new logos, bringing in new accounts. And so in the first case, if you really have, say, 20 clients, and that's your whole business, and you're really optimized around serving those accounts. They're fairly large. There's always something new going on. In fact, you have plenty of pipeline and projects going on that you can't even get to because you're still working on that. Then I think marketing does need to kind of be tucked under sales, because the direct sales team knows those accounts. In particular, the founder, president person, probably initiated a lot of those relationships. So they're deeply involved in knowing a lot of the individuals and all the the processes of those clients.
Right.
And so marketing really needs to kind of function within this serious set of accounts that you have. And that's, the relationships are held by sales. So having marketing enhance the sales process, expand the ability of the sales team to, increase their contacts in the accounts, expand the number of use cases, find new buyers in different places in the organization to drive growth. That's a really good, effective model for a marketing team. But on the other hand, if you are dependent on bringing in new logos, you need a very different kind of marketing operation. You need to do demand gen. You need to do, a lot of branding and awareness building in the general marketplace to attract brand new accounts into your business. And so in that case, marketing should really function separately. I mean, they're going to collaborate, in a B2B environment very deeply with sales, but marketing does need to kind of function separately as part of that whole customer acquisition process.
Right. So especially when it comes to branding and then scaling globally and having some of those more longer term strategic initiatives, I guess, as opposed to just supporting the sales motion.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it really, how you set up marketing and sales really should be dictated by the business model and how does the revenue run through the business. And depending on how those things are sourced and how complex it is, we still have, we have multi-billion-dollar clients at IDC who get 80% of their revenue from like 12 to 20 client relationships, the customer relationships, because they're selling to like large telecommunication companies. And how many of those are there in the world? Not that many. And in that case, the deal is, every single deal is a 8-9 multiple figure deal. And so you can afford to put a lot of marketing effort into, at the opportunity level, in
Right.
terms of running account-based marketing. But then, on the flip side, bringing in new accounts, if you're bringing in, looking at you're serving small businesses, and each new account is maybe a five-ish figure kind of relationship that you're going to have, you have to be much more judicious about the level of marketing investment, how much it's going to cost you to acquire the customer. So yeah, they're very different marketing motions, but you have to be very deliberate about making sure the business dictates the structure of the sales and marketing teams and how they relate to each other.
Right. Oh, thank you. That's super helpful. Now, let's say I'm a medium-sized Microsoft partner. I have a marketing team, maybe of one or two people, and I want to invest and hire in marketing and hire new people. How would you prioritize, and what roles do you think they should have in terms of positions and skills to build out their team and their marketing practice?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of it depends on, where is the audience? If you're within a certain metropolitan area, certain kinds of, user groups, particularly if you're selling to like a professional role, like doctors' offices, accountancies, or wealth management type clients. They tend to have organizations and associations, and you need to be present and hire people who can speak the language within your user communities. And whether they're communicating on social or Twitter or on a blog or on a video, they understand the language that the customer is speaking. And you have to make sure, the mix of your team reflects the mission of your marketing organization, right? So, if you have, say, a strong website, but you feel like you really need to develop a set of video assets, you might want to outsource something like that, as opposed to hire someone who's a video specialist. Obviously today, web, social, mobile, search engine marketing are really the bread and butter of the modern marketing team. So you've got to have some resources available, whether they are in or out sourced, and people are much more sensitive to the whole customer experience and customer journey issues, and having a design capability, both in terms of making your stuff look good, but also structuring these customer experiences and journeys across your content, can be can really help you differentiate the customer's journey of learning, discovering your business, learning about you most efficiently, and then doing business with you.
Right. So one of the things that I often say is, keep the strategic things in-house, like your marketing strategy, your go-to-market plan, a lot of the messaging to do with, as you mentioned, industry specific or speaking to your tribe, what their business pains are, what's going to drive a buying action. And then outsource, as you suggested, things like graphics design, where you can find that skill set, whether it's through a virtual marketplace, like Upwork or some of those others, or, a local consulting firm. So what would you insource versus, externally hire in terms of expertise or pieces of the marketing mix?
Yeah, I mean, a small company, when you're kind of just getting going, you're going to start to hire inside. You want to have some people who can develop content and manage your digital properties and get your presence up on whatever social channels you're going to be utilizing. And those are time consuming, so you really want to have a dedicated resource for those things. As your company, as the team gets bigger and more complicated, then you might start to add campaign people and special, like a social marketing specialist, a search engine specialist. You might start adding, product management into your, marketing organization, possibly even field marketers as you start to expand into other territories and regions around the world. So, yeah, I mean, even a good medium-sized business these days may be selling in multiple countries, and they need to make sure that the marketing is effective locally. And that puts resource, demands on the marketing team that wouldn't be present if you're, serving a much smaller, more localized audience.
Mm-hmm. So my next question I'd like to ask is around supporting technology, right? There's so many different analytical resources we need, monitoring traffic, Google Analytics, but also leveraging CRM and other technology and marketing automation. There's so many choices out there. And I know a lot of the Microsoft partners are asking me, which tools should I use? What's the best, software or service? Can you give us some help and insight into what people are using, what helps, what you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to generalize, as you
Mm-hmm.
sort of intimated in your question. But I think, generally speaking, this is where we want to. There's innovation and confusion kind of operating at the same time here, and we try to simplify this to make it easier for people to just kind of get to the innovation part of the equation, and not get lost in the thousands and thousands of candy in the store here, so to speak, with respect to options around various marketing tools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fundamentally, most of the small Microsoft partners that we have worked with in the past, it's basically a CRM system coupled to some sort of email capability,
Right.
and that's usually Dynamics platform. Sometimes there's a third-party marketing automation system there that's really bespoke or built for a small business, not necessarily doesn't have to be top end enterprise system. It can be something that's built for SMB that's going to manage maybe if you're primarily just emailing and that's still the mode you're in, don't you don't feel like you have to buy a multi-channel super high-end marketing automation system to do that. You can
Mm-hmm.
just kind of a simple mail system will get you started. But clearly, it is a multi-channel world. So
Yes, of
I'm
course.
not suggesting that's the best way to go, but it's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And as your marketing capabilities increase, and as you realize there are lots of different places where you need to keep track of your audience and communicate, you are going to need to have the capability of coordinating, and that's a really important word, especially for small businesses. We want to, while we're doing all this organizational and technology work, we also want to make sure the practice of marketing is not, random acts of marketing. That it is a coordinated set of campaigns designed across, a whole kind of long cycle cadence of deliverables and promotions that we're going to, use all kinds of assets and reuse them over time. So as you build your marketing infrastructure from a basic CRM system to keep track of, customer records, some outbound communications, email, web, social, and some analytic tools to measure what's happening out there with
Mm-hmm.
respect to what's working and what's not, both with respect to channels and the content that you're using. And then as your content inventory starts to expand more, maybe there's a need for a content management system in the background as well.
Great.
But you're right. On top of that, there's a lot of choices. Many, even small companies these days, can have 20 or 30 different tools they're using to do all kinds of different things in terms of managing blogs or, doing, web page optimization and video production, running ads on particularly professional networks and things like LinkedIn. And measuring all this stuff. And so there's a bazillion choices out there. And I would say, look, hire good people who know what they're doing, who have some experience with these tools, and they'll probably bring the good tools with them. And even if it's not supposedly, everybody agrees that particular, product is the best of all for everyone, it may be the thing that they're most effective using. And that's
Right.
that's what really counts is
Yeah.
making sure that your team is as effective as they can all be, with the caveat that, and of course, they, as a community, as a team, and the technology underlying and supporting them needs to work together.
And I think that's really good advice in terms of keep it simple, use something that's familiar, and the important thing is to use it as opposed to just having the best of breed or it's not the tool itself, it's the data and the value of the tool, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, most of the marketers will tell you anecdotally that they are nowhere near utilizing the full potential of these infrastructures. And so, people get all tied up in knots about the selection process, but in reality, the bigger challenge is usage level the utility that they're getting out of the system. So don't overinvest in the technology if your staff is not capable of using it. But at the same time, invest in a situation or a set of tools that's going to enable your staff to skill up over time, to increase their competencies in different channels and techniques.
Thank you so much, Gerry, for sharing all the information today. It's so useful for our partners to hear an expert who's not only across the Microsoft ecosystem, but has a window into other technology companies in general, which helps to give us more context and clarity to what's actually happening in key marketing operational issues today. So thank you very much. Remember, this is part 1 of 2, so tune in next month to hear more with Gerry and IDC about investments and budgeting for your marketing team. Thanks for listening to the Partner Marketing Pros podcast. We hope you gained some fresh insights and learned some new practical ideas today that you can implement in your marketing program. See a detailed transcript of the session and helpful links in our show notes. We encourage you now to listen to the companion webinar, which will go into further detail on all of the things that you heard here. It is located within Smart Partner Marketing at aka.ms/smartmarketing. This is just one of a 9-part series that is designed to help you accelerate your marketing efforts to engage buyers and propel your business growth.